Hi, everyone. I don't have any guests tonight because I don't want them to take the attention away from me.
There's a lesser talked about episode deep in the hundreds of episodes of Fairly Oddparents. It premiered at the end of season 8. It goes over a topic that hasn't been fully fleshed out. It's before the debut of Sparky and Chloe, and the writing/animation didn't have a dramatic change yet. If it all ended here, Fairly Oddparents would be drastically different. So let's talk about the Fairly Odd finale that got away. Also plug in my Discord. We start off the episode with Timmy being in Timmyland, making a very extravagant wish under the assumption that his parents are too oblivious to find out. So like how in FairyCon, they started the episode with an "and then the opposite happens" joke.
Timmy's parents are too clueless to notice. Hey, how'd we get on a roller coaster?
They do the same here. However, I do want to speak about something dumb, or should I say someone.
I never bought Timmy a football? Where did this come from? I have to get to the bottom of this at once. Plus, I hate mowing the lawn. Oops, excuse me, Bobo.
One thing that is always hard to critique in media is the dumb character. While not contributing a lot of the thinking in the shows, unless it's a subversion on them not being able to solve anything, they have a magic criticism blanket that handwaves almost anything they do as being too dumb to be looked at too seriously. This allows for many below average intelligent characters to do things that any other character could not or would not do. Normally this leads into dumb characters being pretty funny if written correctly. However, if you consider that sometimes they are written to not follow any logic, and thus be a character that can circumvent issues that any other story would solve properly, we get situations like Timmy's dad point blank hanging out with fairies, because he's so dumb that he broke the internal logic of the show. Here, he's not that way, with this comedy not being that he clearly is inept and shouldn't be allowed to have any responsibilities. He's shown as a clueless adult who just waves off the weird things that happen around him as kid stuff, which feeds into the classic rhetoric of kids versus adults, that thing that Fairly Oddparents was built off of. Timmy's parents bump heads together and try to figure out why there's been so much weird things going on, leading to the conclusion that it must be Timmy. They have a few jokes in there that are really refreshing after our last leap into a Fairly Oddparents episode, like a Dinkelberg joke that I don't want to spoil, out of the many that happen within this episode. Speaking of refreshing, this episode is fun.
It was a cold, rainy night in Dimsdale. The wind was howling like Dinkelberg when I backed over his foot with my car. I was dog tired, which is weird because my dog was man tired. But there was a mystery gnawing at my brain like the rabid coyote I had put in Dinkelberg's bed.
Although this would be one of a couple times that Fairly Oddparents would go the detective route, what I like about it here is that it shifts it from not being a knockoff of Where's Wanda, and how Timmy's dad would legitimately act if he was a detective. And sure, in that episode he was trying to get caught, but story-wise, the episode didn't really have nothing to do with him. They end up spying on Timmy to see where he's getting all of this weird stuff from. Their chemistry in this episode is amazing, almost as if the show hasn't batted an eye for 8 seasons. When you take into consideration their run on Oh Yeah cartoons, for Timmy's parents to still have that cooperation and chemistry between them to make for an entertaining pair, even in the post-hiatus and more modern Fairly Oddparents, is both amazing and frustrating. It's amazing in the sense that it's clear that the show is built to go on with people who understand the characters on a deeper level and would write entertaining stories. But on the other hand, it's frustrating because it's clear that the show is built to go on for a very long time, and could have with the right team. They spy on Timmy, who makes it very clear that he's being very clumsy and open with his use of fairies. I do enjoy how on more than one occasion, they have one to express their concern for Timmy's careless wishing behavior. In the meantime, the amazing duo of Timmy's parents think that Timmy's a witch, a time traveler, and blackmailing Santa. It makes sense why they wouldn't immediately go to fairies, even if Cosmo and Wanda were Timmy's father's godparents at one time. It's because when you grow up you forget about fairies, and it's clear that that has happened here. So we get to the good stuff.
That's weird. A floating TV.
There's only one possible explanation. Timmy's a witch!
No wonder my broom's been missing.
Yeah, actually, I took the broom to sweep a black widow under Dinkelberg's door.
This isn't the first time that Cosmo, Wanda, and Timmy's parents have coexisted within the same story. We have Fairy Friends and Neighbors, where Timmy wishes for his godparents to hang out with his real-life parents. It was a fun episode that allowed for the two duos to talk, have fun, just provide a lot of comedy. And in a more serious fashion, you had Abracatastrophe, where trapped Timmy decided it was worth giving up his fairies to save the world from Mr. Crocker, and thus revealing their identity then. This kind of takes the best from from both of these scenarios, being an actual transparent meeting of the two, but also not too serious to not have that much comedy.
Besides, it's not like they're spying on me.
Timmy, we've been totally spying on you.
So now the episode operates under an unusual assumption. Timmy's parents know about his godparents. It opens up a world of possibilities for storytelling, because this doesn't happen. Also, it doesn't seem like a dumb idea because it's not completely unrealistic or against the show's internal logic. Speaking of that internal logic, they immediately bring up the rules, stating that since now Timmy's parents know about Timmy's godparents, they have to go away.
It's not that simple.
Actually, Sport, it is that simple. If Jorgen never finds out that your parents know about us, we can stay.
The crazy thing is, she's right. It's weird for post-hiatus episodes to be so loose with their rules and not be a bad episode, but I have to admit the level of continuity within this episode is admirable. I'll be bringing this up again later, but the ease of amending rules have been done so many times. The more notable of the two is the introduction of Poof. At one point it was against the rules to have a fairy baby because of the insane amount of power they hold. However, they changed the rule to allow Poof. There's also the first live-action Fairly Oddparents movie grew up Timmy Turner. In that movie, without giving out too much information, it was about Timmy's age, growing up to be too old to have fairies. However, in the end, the rule was switched so that he can keep Cosmo and Wanda regardless of age. So it's clear that while the rules are strictly enforced, that doesn't mean that they are written in stone. I mean, they're written in the book, but you know, whatever.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Fortunately, today's turn of events go under the Musclehead's nose, for now. In the meantime, we get some bonding between Timmy and his sets of parents, showing his real-life parents all the abilities of fairies. Their plan is that if they keep it a secret from Jorgen, he won't know. It does take Timmy's parents a while to adjust, but that also makes sense, considering that even if they did have fairies, it would have been years ago. Also, they aren't that bright to begin with. So in classic Fairly Oddparents nature, there are running jokes. The two I want to focus on are on opposite spectrums of quality. So let's get the bad one out of the way first. They have this running joke that Cosmo's the one that poofs Timmy's parents away whenever Jorgen enters the scene. It's really dumb, because again, it's so grossly transparent that they want to have another running joke, and they went for the lowest hanging fruit. Season 8 isn't perfect, but it still retains a little of that magic that Fairly Oddparents fostered. I also just didn't like the way the jokes were set up. It felt stale, I didn't find any of them funny, but however, on the other side, we have Jorgen's interest in a theme park slash Poof and Jorgen's dynamic. Now this I loved. It's just great to see opposites attract. By this point, Jorgen is about as strong and as menacing as, well, a very small dog. So like 2.6 out of 10 times, maybe? He's used a lot more for comedy now to mix results. However, here he knocks it out of the park with Poof. So you can clearly see that this is a very fun and wacky episode. It's a very unique episode as well of the Fairly Oddparents. And while being 22 minutes, and it is a special, it's something that can clearly work as a finale. With the episode ending in a multitude of ways. It can end with Timmy and his pairs of parents keeping everything a secret, having it be so that as long as they're keeping everything under Jorgen's nose, they're fine. You can go the wholesome and satisfying route of just having Jorgen amend the rules again to make it so that Timmy can spend time with both sets of family, without having to keep it a secret from Timmy's parents. His real life parents anyway. Now some may make the claim of, why? Well, I have a few strong points if I do say so myself. Firstly, Timmy is an exemplary god kid, at least portrayed to be within the show. He went on many adventures that nearly tore the universe apart. He saved Fairy World multiple times, and because of his rivalry with Mr. Crocker, it allowed for a paranoia-fueled teacher to power Fairy World based off of his craziness. He's done a lot to be historically significant within Fairly Oddparents, at least that universe. So to grant him this wouldn't be undeserved. Also, it's not like the show holds the rules in a high light even up to this point. We had an episode that had Timmy make a wish about not needing to sleep, only to have him need sleep, which defeats the purpose of what was going on. Again, the rules have been swapped, conveniently ignored. It's pretty clear that the show brings out the rules when it benefits them, both in and out of the story. If Fairly Oddparents ended with a happy note like that, then the series wouldn't have to deal with what season 9 and 10 offers, and it might have been viewed a little better overall. I also appreciate that in a similar fashion to Timmy, his parents' wishes get out of control and become reckless, which again, also makes sense. I'm saying a ton of things make sense here, something you'll see not at all in that other video.
And by fix it, I mean weld it shut and drag it down the street behind my car.
Terrible, disgusting, absolutely horrid. Anyway, Timmy would not feel such a great need to be so careful now because the reason he was careful before was so that his parents didn't find out, but now that they have, he naturally slips into the same problem with Jorgen alongside his sets of parents. So Timmy's parents wish for many things: a magic talking golf ball, a talk show, heck, even being the president.
Don't interrupt, golf ball! So help me, I will take you out with an airstrike. Anyway,
The fact that he threatened an airstrike and pointed up to the planes, being ready to destroy anything he points at, is so amazing. I must vote for this man to be in the office immediately. What? You think I'm being too mean to the little old golf ball? Well, you'll see why.
why you double-crossing dimple demon?
Okay, besides the fact that the golf ball did die incredibly brutally but also amazingly, I know why this is done. The status quo is incredibly cruel, and realistically, there's so much potential with not following it. Considering the fact that the show would go on to have a rapidly dwindling amount of cast members per episode, you could just have them all know each other when you take into account that many season 10 episodes feature Timmy and his sets of parents. That way you can legitimately grow the show rather than your artificial ways of trying to keep it relevant, because it's really just masquerading death. So in a very touching way, his parents give up all of their stuff, including a long lost ring that Timmy's mother has been searching for years, just so that Timmy can keep his fairies. It's so frustrating to see everything go back to normal, because on this timeline it gets worse. But maybe potentially if the show had less rules to deal with, it could have been better. I mean, it was slightly leaning towards being bad at this point. Butch's touch, if he ever had one, left to go work on Tough Puppy and then later on Bunsen's a Beast. And season 9, like I mentioned earlier, it just ruined everything fundamentally. This would have been a great finale. So everything goes back to normal, but I want to point out two things. One, Timmy decides to help his parents out more, in secret anyway, but also two,
But I'm starting to feel like those fish are part of the family too. Oh, that was a really sweet thing you did, sport.
I have a theory, an alpha theory. Jorgen would disappear from the episode abruptly after the wish. Could it be that he understood the bond between the two sets of parents and injected a little mental guiding that Timmy's parents would take note of those green and pink objects that always hang around Timmy? It's a nice thought to have. I can get behind that. Anyway, it ends with Timmy's hand over a photo book of the adventures he went on with his parents, which is confusing because if the gifts are gone, then you would think the adventures would also be erased, but it's already confusing enough. That was Meet the Oddparents. This is what I was talking about when I said that Fairly Oddparents could have ended here. You should check out the other 6 times when I think Fairly Oddparents should have ended in my 7 ways video by clicking here, or by looking through my Fairly Oddparents playlist in general by clicking here. Special thanks to the patrons of August, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.